What's good, cubers? It's your boy Matt, and it's time to talk archetypes. You know, a lot of times when cubers think about monocolored archetypes in their cube, they think about red burn, white weenie, green ramp, and a lot of times blue kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So today we're going to talk about blue tempo. Let's get started. So blue tempo has been tearing up standard the last few months, and while we don't play any of these cards in cube, we can take a lesson from them. Blue tempo consists mainly of card draw, a la Curious Obsession, disruption, a la Dive Down, and some good threats, with evasion preferably, a la Tempest de Gem. And it might be showing my age a little bit, but I first remember running across blue tempo a million years ago in the Blue Skies deck during Marcadian Mass Block, where, again, you played card draw, a la Gush, disruption, a la Foil, and evasive threats like Spiketail Hatchling that actually have disruption stapled onto them. When we think about blue tempo in cube, though, we need to think about how we balance these sections of our cube. In fact, Usman, who is a cube genius, says that you should have close to 50% creatures and 50% non-creature spells in blue. But if we're looking at the average cube according to Cube Tutor, we can see there's a big gap between the number of creatures the average cuber runs and the number of non-creatures. Now, I do know that this is an average and that most cubes are a little closer, but if we want to get as close to 50% as possible, we're definitely going to have to make some adjustments. This way, blue will actually have the creatures and the threats they need to press their tempo game. Now, we're going to want to use the standard decks as a template or some hints, if you will. Remember, card draw, disruption, and aggressive, preferably evasive threats brings us to these cube cards. Memory Lapse, counterspell, put it on top of their library. That's a time walk. Your opponent plays something, you counterspell it, make them draw it again, so there's no new cards in their hands and you gain tempo. Warkite Marauder is fantastic because he can swing in and beat other flyers because he can turn them into 0/1s, and sometimes you're able to ping them off if you're splashing red. And Ponder is your cheap cantrip, it's your card advantage. You don't want to play cards like Curious Obsession in your cube. Auras aren't great because they can't avoid being 2-for-1, and what I mean by that is when you try to cast the aura on your creature, your opponent removes the creature, and so they used one spell and you lost 2. So you don't want to play a lot of auras. Cards like Ponder are just a little better for that cantrippy card draw effect. It's going to make sure that you hit your next land drop or find your next threat or find your next answer. But these aren't the only cards we need to play. We need to play a little suite of cards. And so again, counter spells, time walk effects, card draw. Mana Leak is a great early counterspell and very splashable, great in your main cube anyway. Mana War is a cube staple that when he comes down bounces a creature back to your opponent's hand, which is another time walk effect. And Brainstorm isn't great, but it does let you filter your next few draws, and if you combine it with a fetch land, then you can crack the fetch to shuffle away the 2 cards that you don't want. And all 3 of these cards are cube staples, so let's just keep going. We can play Vendilion Click, which you can flash in to block or flash in on your opponent's instep, and then you can look at your opponent's hand and snatch a card out of it, still gaining tempo. Exclusion Mage is another Mana War effect, bouncing something back to your opponent's hand and time walking them. And Miss Syndicate Naga is a new include that you can ninjutsu into play, and when he hits your opponent, multiplies. Again, gaining tempo, making blocks hard for your opponent. All of these things are great mono blue tempo includes into your cube. But the other thing I like about blue tempo is that it combines well with other colors. In black, you can add Thoughtseize for more hand destruction. You can play Azurius, play Reflector Mage and little white weenie aggro creatures, and then use the blue cantrips and counterspells to protect them. You can even splash bomb colorless cards like Tangle Wire, which just make your opponent want to cry. Stick a threat early, drop Tangle Wire, force them to be tapped down the next turn while you beat their brains out and draw cards and cantrip and hold up counters. Oh, so much goodness. So if your mono blue section doesn't feel like it has a real identity, try out tempo. Put in some of these cards. Chances are you're playing most of them anyway, or at least a few of them. It's not that hard to work the others in. Give your mono blue player a real deck to try out. Well, that's going to do it for today, cubers. I want to give a quick shout out to White Wolf and Zolthux for giving me some ideas and some feedback on some parts of this video. I really appreciate it. You can find both me and them on the Twitter. I am at cubefortwo. Be sure to like and subscribe as always. Super important to us here. If there's a topic or card you want us to cover or look at, leave it in the comments below. And as always, and until next time, shuffle up and keep cubing, my friends.